Welcome to a new edition of the brand called You. I have brought to you some really exciting people over the last few months, and today I have a young man who has achieved a lot very early in life. Sahil Vachani, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Sahil is from Warwick University. He's from Harvard Business School. He was an investment banker with Citigroup. He's the co-founder of Dixon Appliances, and he is currently the CEO and MD of Max Ventures and Industries. My God, Sahil, that's a huge amount of achievement so early in life.
I don't think it's achievement yet. It's still work in
Work in
progress.
progress. So, Sahil, tell us a little bit about your early career and your early learnings and part of your journey.
So I went to school in Delhi, after which I went to university in the UK. Always had a deep desire to come back to India, to do something here in the country. Very proud of being Indian. And I guess when you're a lot younger, you're eternally optimistic
Yeah.
about everything.
Yeah.
So wanted to come back. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. My uncle had a running business which was in the consumer durables manufacturing space, contract manufacturing space, and I joined him, and I worked with him for about 6 years before we co-founded the Dixon Appliances, which is the manufacturing business for appliances. But the early years were tough. They were full of lot of hours, many of them non-productive hours, I would say, and a lot of failures. I think I tried a lot of things and failed at pretty much everything that I tried at in the initial years. But it was a period of very deep learning, and today I value that experience a lot.
Wonderful. So, tell me, you worked with Citigroup for how many years was that?
Not a very long time.
Not a
I just did that for about a year
Okay.
and a half. Yeah.
And what was it like as an entrepreneur when you founded Dixon and then you moved to Max?
So it was very different. When I was building Dixon Appliances, it was a company from scratch with very limited capital. We started off with about 50 lakhs of capital. So extremely capital light, very intensive in terms of driven by profitability and month-on-month survival and sustainability. But I think that helped me build out, and the fact that we built it out to be one of the largest contract manufacturers in the country was was a invaluable experience. It was fantastic. And then coming to Max, I enjoyed the process of starting something from scratch and building it, and I wanted to do that at Max as well. And fortunately, I had the opportunity to do that within the larger umbrella of the Max Group. I started out Max Ventures, which is actually a new company now, just 3 years
Yeah,
old. So
yeah. And then you also got Max Estates, you got Max Specialty Films, and Max I, which is
Right.
Max Investments. Tell us a little bit about these three businesses as well as about Max Ventures.
So Max Ventures is the holding company.
Okay.
It was formed in 2016. That was a resultant of the demerger of the larger Max Group. It had in it a packaging business, which is Max Specialty Films, which makes BOPP film for FMCG and other packaging requirements. But the idea and the drive was to start something new, and that started. And I was very passionate about real estate. And so we started a real estate business called Max Estates, which is focused on the commercial office space segment in the NCR market. And that's how we built that out. And in parallel, had an investment arm, because one always gets very excited by some of the new things that one sees, and there's a lot of disruption that's happening across any industry that we see. And for incumbents in that industry, it's very easy, and they're very susceptible to being disrupted.
Correct.
So the question is, can you stay on top of some of the new disruptions happening, and in a sense be the disruptor, not the disrupted? So
I'm going to come to Max Investments in a short while because I'd love to hear what
Sure.
sectors you like to look at. But, let's talk of Max Estates, real estate. And when I was reading about you, you said that, you build Max Towers, which is the only stressed real estate asset to have witnessed a speedy revival.
yes.
Help me understand this.
So we started the journey with Max Estates, and we realized that there was an asset on the south of Delhi, between Delhi and Noida. It's a fantastic location. The asset was stressed. The developer could not complete the development, and it was stuck for 5-6 years already. We went in, and as we expressed an aspiration to get into real estate, we went in and realized that while the location and the fundamentals were correct, it was opportune for a developer like Max or a brand like Max to come in and with a young, energetic team to see if we could revive it. So we first went to the regulator, in this case, the Uttar Pradesh government and the authority of Noida, requested them and explained our intent to them. We were very lucky that they wanted to support somebody young, somebody honest, and a clean organization. They realize the merits of bringing transparency to real estate and supporting corporates who promote transparency and corporatization of real estate, in a sense. So it just happened to be at the correct place at the right time, frankly. With getting support from the regulator, we then carved out the underlying land directly from the authority to Max. Then started building it out, and had a fantastic team that helped us build the entire product in record time of 18 months. And great operating team that is running it absolutely fantastically. And now we are successful in bringing some of the top corporates into the Noida market.
Wonderful. So you used three very interesting words: young, honest, and clean. And that is a paradigm shift from what most people understand real estate. Is that one reason for your success?
I think it's the everybody in real estate, whether you look at the consumers, whether you look at the all the stakeholders from a real estate industry perspective, whether it is regulators, consumers, suppliers, operators, are craving for exactly this.
Correct.
I think a lot of people have had enough, and people, I know a lot of people, and I'm sure you do as well, who've got their life savings stuck in real estate, and it's just not fair for that to happen. And thus the time is ripe, and I think the government and our system is realizing that. If you look at the regulatory reforms that have happened in the last 3 to 4 years, between RERA, between GST, whether it was demonetization, or the insolvency bankruptcy code, I think all 4 of them have been catalysts to try and push real estate towards corporatization. And you see that across the country. You see that in Mumbai, you see that in other geographies. So why not in our home, in our home city?
So, staying with real estate, how do you see yourself expanding across the whole country?
Interesting question. I don't think we will expand across the whole country. Our view is that real estate is a very local business. It's not a pan-India business. It's not like many of the other businesses that you can spread. I think different cities or different geographies, let's say Bangalore and the NCR, are practically like different countries. So I don't think that's correct to say that we can expand pan-India. I think the idea is to be focused in one market that you understand, build capability in, and keep repeating success over and over again. And globally, if you look at most developed markets, that's where they are. This is how they're very localized real estate players. And frankly, the NCR market is not a small market.
No, 22 million people.
Exactly, 22 million people, growing. Yes, we are going through a period of excess oversupply in the residential space today, while commercial, as you mentioned correctly, is doing very well. But over a period of, if you take a 10-year horizon, I think this will correct out. If the city has to grow, or the economy has to grow, or the country has to grow, we will consume all forms of real estate.
And are you expanding into residential also?
No, we are currently just focused on commercial. But I think trying to
have a natural progression.
Exactly.
So talking a little bit about Sahil, multiple businesses, from real estate to investment. Number one, how much time do you spend on each one of these? And two, How do you manage such diverse businesses?
So the truth is, it started off as that to be a multiple business group, but I think and we came to this realization. This is one of the deep learnings that I've had over the last 2 years, is that it's not about you. You cannot do too many things, and thus we've zoned down and zeroed in on real estate as the focus area and the area to grow. So effectively, I'm trying to cut down what I'm looking to do. So just as an example, our packaging films is a very matured, stable business that's run by a professional team. The real estate business is what I'm personally driving along with my team, and we've reconfigured the investment vertical to only focus on investments around the real estate space or real estate technology. So I think one of my key learnings is that the era of conglomerates in this country is no longer relevant. If you look at from the 80s or 90s, when conglomerates actually started building up in India, or 70s, 80s, it was when access to capital was a barrier, access to intellect was a barrier, access to people was a barrier, and access to markets was a barrier. Today, none of those is the case, and you have excessive or hyper competition in each space that you're in. And I just think it's impossible for somebody to run 3 businesses and be leaders in those businesses. And I think as a personal philosophy for myself and as the Max Group, we want to be at the forefront of the industry in which we operate, in terms of customer experience, in terms of shareholder value creation, in terms of just the paradigm in which we operate. And to be able to sustain that and to keep that growing, I don't think it's possible to do more than one thing. So our focus at Max Ventures moving forward is actually only in real estate, and we've centered everything around that.
You're absolutely right. And I go back to the mid-90s when we used to live in Singapore. And I used to often say that a lot of these economies had driven the size of their economy based on real estate.
Right.
And then there was a big shakedown.
Right.
I think the same thing has happened in India.
Correct.
The shakeout has already happened.
Yes.
And I think you're very well positioned to take advantage of the clean, honest way of business that you spoke about.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the idea as well. I think the critical thing in real estate, at least from what I've read and what I've understood, is you have to be extremely balanced to not be driven either by greed or by fear.
Sure.
And if one is able to keep that semblance and
Focus.
balance moving forward, I think people can do reasonably well.
Terrific. So, Sahil, let's move to Max Investments. Clearly, that is something you're quite passionate about. What are some of the sectors that you like to invest in?
So interesting. When we started out with Max Ventures, the idea was to look at all kinds of industries, sectors, new technologies, and we made a few investments. But moving forward, like I said earlier, we've kind of changed the mandate. The mandate is only to focus on real estate technology or real estate enabled investments that actually support our core real estate business. And the reason for doing that is, again, simply just one: focus. If we want to be a leader in the real estate space and where we see a huge opportunity, I think that's where we want to play, and that's where we're wanting to focus our investment arm on. The interesting perspective here is that if you look at any industry, if you look at hotels, or if you look at transport, or if you look at any other industry, social, communication or social, technology has transformed those industries to a huge extent. The way we take a taxi, for example, or we commute today has completely been transformed by technology. But somehow in real estate, that's not yet happened. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for technology and disruption to happen in the real estate space, to be able to enable a more efficient, transparent, real estate industry. And that's where we are now looking to focus the investment arm in, to participate and partner with companies with whom we can not just provide capital, but provide strategic input and value, because there are frankly many people who have a lot more capital and who are able to do that better. That's not our core business. But with companies who are particularly in the real estate tech space or the real estate enabled space, to partner with us, there's a value addition, not just of bringing capital on the table, but also a potential use case scenario where we can bring some customers onto the table. So that's the idea.
Very, very interesting. I wish you lots of luck in this.
Thank you
because
very much.
Real estate needs some good people to come in and change what customers expect.
The thing in real estate is that everybody who probably enters real estate is good. It's just what happens to them while they stay in real estate. So
That is true.
that's the question.
It's always the last mile which ends up with the
Yes,
problem.
so that's important.
So let's talk a little bit about startups and entrepreneurship. And you've done your own venture. You're investing through Max I, and I'm sure you've looked at multiple businesses. What do you think are some of the challenges or mistakes that a lot of startup entrepreneurs in our country face?
I think the first one is they try to do too many things. Try to be too many things to too many people. I've done that as well at some point, and it's very easy to get swayed by getting excited, and when you're younger, you're a little jumpy about the opportunities that come, so you want to do a lot more. And the second, I think, is people don't persevere hard enough. We get demotivated pretty quickly, and if you look at any successful business, and I'm sure you've done 150 odd podcasts now, when you speak to so many people, it'll be very interesting to ask you the question that what have you seen are successful traits. But I think one of the things that we see, at least amongst the people who we see, is the ability to focus on something and to persevere for a period of time. I think that's results in an outcome, because if you look at the macroeconomic fundamentals, right, in our country, there is demand. There are so many people.
Absolutely.
There is captive demand.
Absolutely.
There's probably a demand for anything you produce or you,
And at any price.
and at all price points. So with that broader, sense, there, I think if people are able to focus, and if we are and continue to focus, because it's not just being able to do both of these things at one point in time, it's being able to do both of these things at all points in time in one's journey.
And you're right, because I've often said to people, that the biggest challenge of an entrepreneur is not to see an opportunity in every idea. The moment you see an idea, you say, oh, this is a great opportunity, let me make an investment.
Yeah.
And then that's when people start to fail.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, there's a question that I ask a lot of entrepreneurs.
Right.
And we know that 9 out of 10 startups don't make it. Yet, in most of Asia, whether it's India or China, most parents keep just telling the children how important it is to come first, how important it is to win. And this manifests itself in our behavior on the road. Somehow or the other, my car must be right in front. When I land at an Indian airport, I must get off first from the aircraft, etc., etc. How important, in your opinion, is the need to understand failure?
Hugely important. I think it's one of the biggest learnings that we as a society need to have. I think, as you correctly mentioned, traditionally, we've been looking down upon failure. Whereas I think we need to encourage it more. We need to be able to get up, fall down, get up 100 times to be able to do that again, to really succeed as a society, as a country. And I think everyone has to play our role. From when you recruit people, you want to recruit people who've only done very well. Nobody wants to recruit somebody who's made mistakes. So I think it has to change at a personal level. But I think it's a very, very important.
And it's interesting, I think a lot of people of your generation, if I can use that term, because you're significantly much younger than I am, are, I think, beginning to make a change.
Yes.
And not necessarily saying, if I don't come first, I think I have failed.
Absolutely. I think, and thankfully so.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the pressure on our children is lesser.
Correct.
The pressure on the society is lesser. And I have to say, you have to give credit to media, to the entertainment industry, frankly, to be able to change this.
Yeah.
I think I remember at least a tipping point in amongst a lot of the people who I interact with was when the movie Three Idiots came out.
Correct.
Right, it really changed the way they thought about what is success
I
and
agree.
what
And
is
one more
failure.
recently, this movie called Chichore.
I haven't.
You haven't seen it? Again, a brilliant movie
Okay.
on how to tackle failure.
Yeah. So I think they're playing a very important role, and that's a good medium for people to
I agree.
to
I agree.
yeah.
So let me move to the third segment, which is about some questions about you personally. Have you had any mentors who you look up to, and if yes, what were some of your learnings from them?
Oh, absolutely. Many. When I first started working I think if I can go back, my parents, when I was much younger, then my grandfather, he was a great entrepreneur. Then when I started my business, my uncle, who I was working with, the group CEO at that time, who I'm very close to. He mentored me a lot, and then for the last 5-6 years, when I joined the Max Group, my father-in-law, Mr. Anujeet Singh, who you know well, he's played a very important
Amazing.
part in being able to mentor me.
Amazing. Next question to you would be, what would be 3 adjectives that would define your strengths?
I think I think there are 2 or 3, a couple of traits that I believe I follow. One, I think, is discipline. I am not as disciplined as I want to be, but I am reasonably okay.
So you wake up every morning at 4 o'clock?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thankfully, not yet, but it may happen.
Okay.
But no, I think I'm relatively disciplined compared to what I was some time ago. The second is I don't give up. I don't just let it go. I follow through. And the third, I think, is that I truly cherish and enjoy relationships. I enjoy building them. So I don't know adjectives as such, but I think the 3 traits that I think are important for me.
Wonderful. Yeah. Those are very good points. Yes. So my next question to you would be, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Honestly, it's maybe yesterday or
Okay.
day before. In what we do, so I've become a father recently. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So that's being a dad for the first time. We're building a business in an industry which, frankly, we are not from. We don't know anything about real estate, and we're trying to build something in the real estate world. So pretty much every day you get to find something that you've not done before, whether it's got to do with design or regulatory or construction, and these are all new learnings. But I think it's very important to be able to push ourselves out of the comfort zone, and at least at the age that we're at, to be able to do things that we've not done before and have new experiences.
Wonderful. So a question I ask every single guest comes back to failure, partly because I think we need to talk a lot about failure, and partly because of a little selfish interest.
Right.
I'm writing a new book on failure.
Okay.
Sahil, tell me, what would be some of your learnings from some of your failures or your mistakes?
Sometimes I burn bridges. When I was much younger, more hot-headed, more aggressive, and I think that led to some sort of a failure. Second, like I mentioned to you, I think when we were starting out, you felt you wanted to do so many things, and thus once you did so many things, the difference between what you want to do, what you think you can do on an Excel spreadsheet, and what it boils down to on the ground in execution is completely different. On an Excel sheet, it's so easy, but at an execution level, it does not translate into the way you do. So thus, I think I learned the need to build relationships, the need to focus and always drive focus, and particularly from a business perspective, to always remember that debt does not sleep at night. So to always be leveraged in in a very conservative way.
Well said. So my last question to you, you've worked with so many entrepreneurs, and we have 10 to 15,000 people watching us every
Right.
single day or listening to us every single day. A lot of them are entrepreneurs.
Right.
As a young entrepreneur who's building new businesses, who has built new businesses, what would your advice be to a young person wanting to start off?
I think three things. One, a few things. One, it's be prepared for a long journey. If you think something's going to take 1 year, it's probably going to take double. Or if you think it's going to take 5, it's going to take 10. And thus, take care of yourself. Because a lot of us have, and I see this a lot, that people burn themselves out in trying to run too fast, and pretty much remember that it's more like a marathon, not a sprint. So first is to take care of yourself, your health, your family, your mental, physical, emotional well-being. The second is to focus. It's just to focus on something. First do that well and then move to the next thing. And third is just don't give up, and just persevere and keep it going. So yeah.
Sahil, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This has been an absolutely incredible session.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing Max on real estate buildings around NCR.
Thank you. I'm
Good
looking
luck.
forward to reading your new book.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for the Brand Called You. Thank you and see you next week.